بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه ثم أما بعد. To proceed. Today inshallah we have Bab al-Irada or Maqam al-Irada, chapter or station of al-Irada, willfulness. And in fiqh we will have Arkan al-Hajj wal-Umrah, Arkan wa Wajibat al-Hajj wal-Umrah, which is the pillars and the mandatory actions of al-Hajj and Umrah, Hajj and Umrah. First, Bab al-Irada, Imam al-Harawi rahimahullah ta'ala said, باب الإرادة قال الله تعالى قل كل يعمل على شاكلته. Chapter on willfulness, Allah the Almighty said, say everyone acts according to their disposition. Say everyone acts according to their disposition. قل كل يعمل على شاكلته. Say everyone acts upon their disposition, their inclination. And that is in Surah Al-Isra. And then the Shaykh proceeds to, like usual, to talk about the definition of al-irada and the classification, his usual classification into three levels. One for al-awam, the public, the masses, the commoners. One for al-khawas, the elites. And one for al-khawas, the most elite of the elites, or the topmost of the elites. And usually, like he always does, he starts with a verse from the Quran. He starts the chapter with a verse from the Quran. Irada is about the inclination of the heart. It is about the desire of the heart. Therefore, he chose قُلْ كُلٌّ يَعْمَلُ عَلَى شَاكِلَتِهِ. Shakilati is his disposition or his inclination. And then he said, الإرادة من قوانين هذا العلم وجوامع أبنيته وهي الإجابة لدواعي الحقيقة طوعا. الإرادة من قوانين وعليكم السلام. الإرادة من قوانين هذا العلم وجوامع أبنيته وهي الإجابة لدواعي الحقيقة طوعا. Okay, so الإرادة من قوانين هذا العلم وجوامع أبنيته. What does that mean? It means الإرادة, willfulness, is one of the principal rules of this knowledge, and its foundational structures. Principal rules of this knowledge, because what is this knowledge? This is the knowledge of tasawwuf. He's talking about the knowledge of tasawwuf. Why does al-irada occupy a very special place in the knowledge of tasawwuf? Why is it min qawaneen hadha al-ilm, the principal rules of this knowledge? Why is it from jawami' abniyati, the foundation of the structure of this knowledge? What is the knowledge of tasawwuf about? It's about harakat al-qalb. It is about the actions of the heart. Like the knowledge of fiqh is about regulating the actions of the exterior, the actions of the body, the knowledge of tasawwuf is about regulating the actions of the interior, the actions of the heart. So if that is true, if the knowledge of tasawwuf is about harakat al-qalb, amal al-qalb, the actions of the heart, then certainly willfulness will take a very special place in this knowledge. Because al-irada, willfulness, is the sort of the most consistent action of our hearts. Our hearts are always willing, always wanting, always desiring something or another. And this desire could be optimal, suboptimal, could be good or bad, but our hearts are always working. That is why the Prophet ﷺ said, أصدق الأسماء الحارث وهمام. أصدق الأسماء الحارث وهمام. Why are أصدق الأسماء الحارث? What does that mean? أصدق الأسماء, most truthful of names. The most truthful of names are al-Harith, the tiller, the plowman or tiller, wa hammam. Hammam comes from what? From himma. Himma is will. So the willful, sort of would be hammam. But al-Harith is because we are always, Harith, the tiller, the plowman, because we're always harvesting the yield of what we plant, what we sow. That's right or wrong? Human beings are always harvesting the yield of what they sow. And hammam, which comes from himma, which comes from will, himma is because we are always willing, wanting, desiring something or another, inclining towards one thing or the other. So willfulness is certainly has a very important place in this knowledge. And then he said, وهي الإجابة لدواعي الحقيقة طوعا. وهي الإجابة لدواعي الحقيقة طوعا. It concerns the willful response to the call of the truth. It concerns the willful response to the call of the truth. We talked before about niyyah, and sometimes it looks like when we talk about those stations, sometimes it looks like splitting hair. We talked before about niyyah, didn't we? And we talked about qasd, and we talked about azm. And qasd is the direction. When you set out on a journey, you'll have to direct your face to a destination, or you'll have to face a certain direction. When you walk out of your door, you'll have to make a right, a left, walk straight, and so that is qasd, direction, to determine the direction, to determine the destination once you embark on the path, once you embark on this journey. Qasd is sometimes considered the direction, sometimes it's considered sort of almost like a niyyah plus. A niyyah plus more than just a niyyah, more than just the intention. We talked last time about azm, about resolve, right? And we said that this is the criterion that discerns between the most elite of human beings, ulul azmi min ar-rusul, the messengers with great resolve, have been set apart by Allah from the rest of the messengers, which are the greatest of humanity, by one quality, one characteristic: azm, resolve. Ulul azmi min ar-rusul. Fasbir kama sabara ulul azmi min ar-rusul. Be patient like those messengers of great resolve have been. And we talked about who they are. So and now we are talking about willfulness, and it may look like, so what's the difference between resolve and willfulness? Willfulness is, when he talked about resolve, he talked about taw'an aw karha. He talked about, forcing yourself, compelling yourself to do what is required of it, taw'an or karha, willingly or unwillingly. So resolve is when you do things that you do not necessarily desire. Willfulness is about tawa. It is about the willful response to the call of the truth. It is about wanting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the hereafter, Allah wa dar al-akhirah, wanting, desiring, inclining to the path that leads you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the hereafter. The question is, how do you get there? Because that is what matters the most. Like, how do I make myself more desiring of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wa al-akhirah, the hereafter? And that's what he will talk about here. He says, وَهِيَ عَلَى ثَلَاثِ دَرَجَاتٍ, and it is 3 levels. الدرجة الأولى ذهاب عن العادات بصحبة العلم. الدرجة الأولى ذهاب عن العادات بصحبة العلم. The first level is about deserting habits by adherence to knowledge. Deserting habits by adherence to knowledge. And this is very, we will talk about the order that the Sheikh chose, because it is genius. It's brilliant of the Sheikh to choose this particular order. He talks about ذهاب عن العادات بصحبة العلم, deserting your habits by adherence to knowledge. Or صحبة العلم literally means what? The company of knowledge. That you accompany knowledge. That you make knowledge your companion in this life. And which knowledge is this? That's the knowledge of the revelation, the knowledge of al-Wahy, the knowledge of Sharia, Quran and the Sunnah. So he's saying that in order for you to have this willfulness, in order for you to be desiring of the hereafter, you have to learn. Knowledge helps in 2 regards. It shows you the proper path to the proper destination, and it motivates you to follow that path. There are two different types of knowledge. We must agree that when we learn mustalah al-hadith, or when we learn even sometimes, I always say that you could enhance your iman by learning fiqh, because you will learn the wisdoms of the sharia and so on and so forth. But just the remembering of the rulings, the memorization of the rulings, does this really motivate you? Does this make you more desiring of Allah in the hereafter? Likely not. Likely not. What does this do? It shows you the path. It shows you, it delineates for you the path, the proper path, and it sets barricades on both sides of the path to prevent you from transgression, to prevent you from veering away from the path to your proper destination, right? But if you read the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, does that motivate you? Seerah of the Sahaba, does that motivate you? If you read about heart softeners and things of that nature, if you read about Allah and the signs of Allah in the universe, do these things motivate you? If you read about death and, and all of those things, they motivate you. So there are two different types of knowledge. They are both important. Why? Because one will motivate you to move, and one will show you the path that you should be moving on, should show you the path that you should be traveling on. The one that is showing you that the path to travel on is not giving you the energy. It is just showing you the path and setting the sort of the signposts on both sides, milestones, barricades. And there is a different type of knowledge that will give you the fuel, the energy to actually walk down that path. Both are important. And we need to stay in the company of both, because we do need the motivation and we do need the guidance to follow the proper path to our destination. So صحبة العلم, ذهاب عن العادات بصحبة العلم, deserting habits by adherence to knowledge. What does he mean by deserting habits? Your biases, your natural inclinations that may not be in agreement with the divine, desire of you. Do you have them? Yes, absolutely. Did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala create you with those natural inclinations? Some of your natural dispositions may not be good. Yes. We are created with challenges, because there are different types of tests in this life, and you are here to be tested. So you were created with certain strengths and weaknesses and virtues and vices, and that is basically the story of your life. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا, successful or prosperous is he who purified his nafs. That's what you do all the time. You're trying to get rid of your bad habits, and you're trying to promote your good habits. You're trying to get rid of your biases. Those are not just societal biases. Those are your individual personal biases. There is a lot of societal biases. When you grow up in a certain society, you have a ton of biases. Whether you grew up in Egypt or you grew up in America, you will have a lot of biases. Or you grew up in any place, Muslim country, non-Muslim country, the culture, the society around you will imbibe, infuse, inculcate a lot of biases in you. And those are the ones that you need to sit down and go through them, and try to sort of judge them, assess them, or measure them by the stick or the meter of the Sharia, or according to the parameters of al-Wahy, the revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Unless you're ready to do this, unless you're constantly ready to do this, and give up your biases, give up your inclinations, give up your habits, and your natural dispositions that may not be in agreement, and the a'raf, the customs. Islam accepts customs. We say, al-'ada muhakkama, it's one of the legal maxims in Sharia. Al-'ada muhakkama means what? Customs are given consideration. Customs are given consideration. In judging and in fatwa and everything, you give customs consideration. Which customs are those that are given consideration? The customs that are in agreement with the Sharia, not the customs that are not in agreement with the Sharia. Certainly you judge people's speech according to their customs, whether their customs are an agreement or not agreement. If someone says something, you judge it according to the customs, the customary usage of that word. But when it comes to accepting customs, and incorporating certain behaviors, and saying that, Islam is like water, it is transparent, it shows the sort of the rocks beneath it, or the sort of the bed of the stream beneath it, meaning that Islam does accept different cultures, different types of food or attires, or doing things in different ways. Islam does accept that, as long as they are consistent with the maqasid of this deen and the rulings of this deen. But otherwise, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا is all about abandoning your biases and your inferior or evil inclinations, which you have many of them, and you have to be aware that you have many of them. That's the first thing. When Sheikh talked before about سُوء الظَّنِّ بِالنَّفْس, and we said that this has to be done in moderation, but سُوء الظَّنِّ بِالنَّفْس, which is to have bad thoughts about yourself, to suspect yourself, is essential for you to walk on this path, because otherwise you will not be looking, as Imam al-Qayyim rahimahullah said, حُسْنُ الظَّنِّ بِالنَّفْسِ يَمْنَعُ مِنْ كَمَالِ التَّفْتِيشِ, you will not be investigating those flaws unless you suspect yourself. So that's the first one, deserting habits by adherence to knowledge or accompanying knowledge. The second one, وَالتَّعَلُّقُ بِأَنْفَاسِ السَّالِكِينَ مَعَ صِدْقِ الْقَصْدِ, clinging to the breaths of the travelers with devotion of intent, or devotion, or with clear direction, or sincere direction, qasd. So clinging to the breaths of the travelers with devotion of intent. Why did he say clinging to the breaths of the travelers? Certainly it is important that you have the proper company, that you don't have a company that will distract you, that will take you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that will corrupt your heart. It is important that you have proper company and that you are close to As-Saalikeen. Saalikeen is different from al-Ubbad, and it is different from al-Ulama. Al-Ulama, you see the word al-Qurra meant to the Sahaba, the Fuqaha. It meant to the scholars of Suluk, al-Ubbad, the worshippers. It meant when the scholars of Suluk talk about al-Qurra, the reciters, they're talking about al-Ubbad, the worshippers. But even al-Ubbad to them are not, the ulama may or may not be Ubbad, right? The ulama may or may not be good worshippers, Ubbad. They may or may not have the motivation to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to excel in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when we talk about al-Ubbad, we're not talking about al-Abideen, we're talking about the ones who excel, a superlative from al-Abid. So the ones who excel in worship. But even al-Ubbad may or may not be from As-Saalikeen, because al-Ubbad may be focused on the work of the exterior. They may be Sharia abiding, they may be focused on the work of the exterior, but they are not observant of harakat al-qalb. They are not observant of the actions of the heart, they are not observant of the inclinations of their heart. They are not paying attention to their interior. Saalikeen must follow this path from beginning to end. They have to base their actions on knowledge, and then they have to adhere to ibadah, and eventually they will have to be observant of their hearts. Because all of these stations that we talk about, we're not talking about the actions of the exterior here. We're talking about humbleness, we're talking about humility, we're talking about inaba, returning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're talking about muhasaba, self-reckoning, we're talking about muraqaba, watchfulness, we're talking about azm, resolve. we're not talking about any of the fiqh rulings that we'll be talking about in the second session. We're not talking about any quantifiable, measurable actions of the body here. We're talking about the heart and where your heart is. And so Saalikeen, Salik means what? Someone who's, taken a path to a destination. So you could say the seekers, but it's someone who's taken a path. Travelers would be a good word for it. Yasluk tariq, take a particular path or a particular route to a particular destination. So a salik is the one who's walking down that path. And when he says التعلق بأنفاس الصالحين, they usually talk about anfas a lot, particularly the scholars of suluk. They talk about anfas is the plural of nafas. And the nafas, it's not nafs, nafas. Nafas is the breath. So when you exhale, that's nafas. So clinging to the anfas of the salihin, clinging to the breaths of the seekers or the travelers, means that why is he using this expression? He's just telling you how close you should be to them. You should be clinging to their breaths. You should be very close to them, like you are, you see, how far does your breath travel from you? So it's just right there, like, goes all the way to here. That's it. So you should be this close to them, so that you could benefit from them. And someone may say, but why do I need to get that close to them if I already have the knowledge? If I already have the knowledge, how are they going to, like if I have the knowledge of the revelation and the knowledge of the Quran and the Sunnah, and I can sit down, I can understand it, and I am a scholar, for instance, and I can sit down and understand all of this, why do I need to be this close to the Saalikeen, to the travelers? Well, because they will encourage you, they'll motivate you, they'll show you your flaws, they'll be truthful, they will not hide, anything from you. They'll share with you constructive criticism. They'll point out your problems. You can't do this on your own. Even if you look in the mirror for 10 years, you're not going to be able to see your flaws. Other people will be able to see your flaws. But if those people that, your friends and your entourage, they're just people of the dunya, what flaws will they see in you? Your beard is not trimmed well, or your shirt is sort of out of style, or they could see some valid flaws, your work ethics, something that. But who's going to show you the flaws of your heart, the flaws of your suluk and akhlaq and so on and so forth? They need to be as-Saalikeen. In addition to this, knowledge per se needs contextualization, right? And the context is never repeated. The context that the Prophet ﷺ lived in is never repeated. You could say, let's talk about zuhd, and we can read about zuhd. And then, but how do I do this? How do I go about it? How do I personally, Hatim, go about this? Well, I can read that Umar radiallahu anhu brought half of his wealth to the Prophet ﷺ and gave it up, and then Abu Bakr brought all of his wealth and gave it up for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I can say, well, they did not, that's it, this is not just talking about zuhd as an abstract idea, this is basically showing me the details of what I should be doing. If I want to be like Abu Bakr and Umar, here is the roadmap. Give up half of your wealth. And if I do this, I may have severe consequences, severe negative consequences, because that is not my maqam, that is not my station. If you have like a mentor to tell you, no, you don't belong here. I mean, someone may say, I want to go to Mauritania to study Islam and so on, but I don't have much money, but I will tough it out. If you just had like a meltdown this morning because there was no hot water, or the shower was not working or something, you probably don't belong there. You're probably not ready for any of that stuff. At face value, if you say, what is wrong with going to a place like this? And I'm not saying that all Mauritania, but I'm saying certain places where you find the scholars and the people can certainly do this. But I'm trying to say, if you don't have money and you want to go there and study for 5 years, and then just yesterday you had a meltdown because of some little inconvenience, with your car, with your bathroom, with your this or that, then you don't belong there. And then you need to wait until you belong there. And if you give up all of your wealth and you say, I'm like Abu Bakr, give up all of your wealth and then regret it, later, do you know how bad that is? How detrimental that could be to your spirituality? It could be very detrimental to your spirituality because now you're regretting something that you have done for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You would have been much better off not doing it to begin with than to do it and then regret it. So yes, knowledge is important, but then you do need mentorship, and you do need to be in the company of the seekers so that these things are contextualized for you and tailored, customized for your particular stage of development, stage of spiritual development. So التعلق بأنفاس السالكين is being close, cling to the breasts of the seekers or the travelers, مع صدق القصد, with devotion of intent. Why did he say with devotion of intent? Because sometimes you don't find those salikin around you. So this comes in the middle between the knowledge, which will show you who the true salikin are. He talked about knowledge first. That shows you who the true salikin are. And then he's saying to you, مع صدق القصد, with genuineness or sincerity of intent, the direction. You will have to have your eye at the destination. You'll have to have your eye at the destination. Because, at some juncture, at some intersection, at some phase of your path, you may not find the salikin around you. And if you don't find them around you and you're wholly dependent on the company of salikin, you get lost. But no, he's saying that you will have the knowledge. Before that, he said that you have the knowledge. And he said here that you're keeping, مع صدق القصد, with genuineness of direction. And your eyes are fixated at the destination. So if at some point you did not find them around you, or they are not around, then you know where your destination is. You could continue to walk down that path until you find others that will help you out. When you look around you and you feel that there is no one seeking, the first thing that you need to do is to have husn al-dhann bil-Muslimin, is to have good thoughts about the Muslimin. There will be people. But if for a particular reason, where you live, your particular circumstances, there are not those people around you, then what you can do is to try as much as you can to do your best by sort of being in the company of the most righteous. If you cannot find the company of the truly righteous people, just find the company of the most righteous around you, the best around you. And, also the company of the Prophet ﷺ and his companions should be, you should be able to immerse yourself in the seerah of the Prophet and their companions until you feel their company as tangible as possible. And it could sometimes be, for some people, very, very tangible. Immersion in the seerah of the companions can make them feel so familiar to you even more familiar than the best of your friends. Okay, and then the Sheikh said, وَخَلْعُ كُلِّ شَاغِلٍ مِنَ الْإِخْوَانِ وَمُشَتِّتٍ مِنَ الْأَوْطَانِ, barring all distractions from the brothers and homelands. وَخَلْعُ كُلِّ شَاغِلٍ مِنَ الْإِخْوَانِ وَمُشَتِّتٍ مِنَ الْأَوْطَانِ, barring all distractions from the brothers and homelands. To bar all distractions from the brothers and the homelands. So he is talking to you here about the right balance of khulta and uzla, solitude and mixing. Khulta, mixing; uzla, solitude. And this is always something that the people of suluk discuss. How much khulta should you have? How much uzla should you have? That depends on many factors. It depends on the people around you. Are they beneficial? Let us say that, all of a sudden, you're told that Abu Bakr and Umar and Abdurrahman ibn Auf and Zubair ibn Awam are somewhere, just hypothetically imagine at MCMC, for instance. It's not, certainly you'd be crazy to say solitude is good now. No, you go there and you mix with them, you benefit from them. So it depends on the company that is around you, and it depends on you as well. Earlier on, when you're still spiritually in your first phases of development, you want the company of the righteous as much as you can, and you want to isolate yourself from any bad company or bad influence as much as you can, because you are still not, established enough on the path to handle the negative company. So you want to isolate yourself as much as you can, and you want to cling to the Salihin only as much as you can. When you become stronger, the stronger you become, the more you could mix with people that are behind you or far behind you to benefit them. The intent here is to benefit them. Even if it may look like they delay you or they may hold you back sometimes, but if you intend to benefit them, they'll get you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by this intention and by your actual helping of them. So, but why did the Shaykh, and now we'll talk a little bit about the tartib, about the order that the Shaykh used. He said the ilm first, and then salikeen second, knowledge first, and then the travelers, and then to cut off the ties with those that will cause you impediment or slow you down. So we said that someone may say, but who's going to teach you? You should have the salikeen first teach you, point out, the proper. No, knowledge should be the base, because the knowledge of the revelation, إِنَّا نَحْنُ نَزَّلْنَا الذِّكْرَ وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. We have verily sent down the dhikr, the revelation, and or the remembrance, and we will verily protect it, and we will most certainly protect it. Allah protected this knowledge for us. The knowledge of the Quran and Sunnah is there. Now, you need this knowledge first to be able to figure out who the true salikeen are, because as we talked before, particularly in the sciences of tasawwuf or the sciences of suluk or tazkiyah, there had been a lot of interpolation, there had been a lot of corruption, there had been a lot of deviation, and you do need to follow the path of Sunni tasawwuf, of Junaidi tasawwuf, the tasawwuf of Abu al-Qasim, because that could be a very it could be a slippery slope, and there could be a lot of confusion in this path because it is not measurable and quantifiable like fiqh. It is not measurable and quantifiable like fiqh. So you really need to be careful. You really need to be careful on this path, because like I said, a lot of corruption, a lot of deviation, and people abuse this for their own sort of deconstructive agenda, deconstruction of the deen. So you need to have knowledge, and they all stressed it. All the masters of this path, the true, genuine masters of this path, really emphasized the importance of the knowledge of the deen and abiding by the knowledge of the deen throughout your journey. So you do need the knowledge first, and the knowledge will show you who the true salikeen are. But then after, and these two points are mentioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ in Quran. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَكُونُوا مَعَ الصَّادِقِينَ. O you who believe, fear Allah and be with as-sadiqeen. As-sadiqeen is another word for as-salikeen, because as-sadiqeen means what? The truthful. O you who believe, fear Allah and be with the as-sadiqeen. The truthful, the sincere, the devout, the ones who have true devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those are the salikeen. So fear Allah and be with as-salikeen or as-sadiqeen. When you are with as-salikeen, are these phases, separate from each other, like you acquire knowledge and then you be with the salikeen and then you cut off the ties? Absolutely not. As we said before, there is so much overlap, and not only overlap, interdependence between all of these phases. So when you are with the salikeen, does this enhance, promote, augment your knowledge? Do you become more knowledgeable? Absolutely. Like I said, there are certain things that you will need help with, mentorship with, the application. How do I go about zuhd? How do I sort of realize this important concept, this important quality in my life, me personally? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٌ. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ, and fear Allah, and Allah will teach you. So there is sort of like a mutual relationship here between taqwa and knowledge. And more taqwa will result in better knowledge, and better knowledge will result in more taqwa. So that is why he put knowledge first, and then he put ta'alluq bi anfas as-salikeen second. But why did he put second the ta'alluq bi anfas as-salikeen and then cutting off the ties? Shouldn't you cut off the ties first before you move? Before you walk with the salikeen? How do you walk with the salikeen when you're tied to كل شاغل من الإخوان ومشتت من الأوطان, distractions, homelands, and the brothers, how could you move without cutting off the ties? That's just like the discussion about takhliya and tahliya. Takhliya is what? To purge the flaws out of your heart, and tahliya is what? To adorn your heart with good qualities and good manners, and which one do you do first? Takhliya or tahliya? Takhliya. That is the conventional thought. And we usually say this because it makes sense. You weed out your heart before you sow the seeds. You weed out your heart before you sow the seeds. Ibn al-Jawzi was asked by someone, should I make istighfar more or tasbih more? He said, a dirty garment needs more soap than perfume. You know what that means? You should make istighfar more. A dirty garment needs more soap than perfume. So you need more istighfar So takhliya should come first. But some people may contest this, and it has been contested. The masters of this science have contested this, or some of them. They say that tahliya comes first, because al-qalb is always mashghool. Qalb has to always be full. Qalb is never empty. You're never just, you could be like, externally completely idle. Your heart is never idle. As long as you're awake and you're alive, your heart is never idle. Qalb is always mashghool. So the concept that you do takhliya, it is not going to happen unless you do tahliya, because it is like a jar that is always full. In order for you to remove the liquid in the jar, you will have to pour into it a different liquid to push that other one out, or your heart is like this. It can't be empty. So anyway, but you get the point. You know, and all of these things are, to a great extent, arbitrary. We're just discussing them for the benefit, you know, of reflecting on them. The same may apply here. You may say that you will not be able to cut off those ties until you accompany the travelers. And because you will not be able to survive just on your own without company, because we human beings are social animals, or they say that. We're not animals, we're human beings. But what discerns us from, well, you know, among the things that discern us from animals is that we are social beings. You just can't live by yourself, completely on your own. So in this, keeping this in mind, you do need the travelers to pull you away from those distractions. To pull you away from those distractions. You will not be able to do it on your own and cut off the ties and then just be by yourself alone without any company or without any help. Although you must try to do this even if there are no travelers around you. But it is just easier that you accompany the travelers because they will distract you from those distractions. Then the Sheikh said, وَالدَّرَجَةُ الثَّانِيَةُ تُقْطَعُ بِصُحْبَةِ الْحَالِ. The second level is accomplished by صُحْبَةِ الْحَالِ, the company of the hal or the spiritual state. And we spend more time on الدرجة الأولى because we all belong to الدرجة الأولى, to be honest. We all belong to the first level, so we need to figure out how to get there. The second and the third, that stuff but we address them to some extent, just in case someone needed to rise there. But then he talks about درجة الثانية. The second level is accomplished by صحبة الحال, the company of the hal or the spiritual state. These sort of divine imports that you receive from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah gives you this glimpses of light, divine imports that come to your heart, and all of a sudden you feel so much tawakkul. Don't waste it. You know, you have been given that. All of a sudden, some great problem befalls you, and then you have so much rida. It comes to you like a burst of rida that just invaded your heart. It's not yours. It's not by acquisition. It is a grant, and it came to you. Don't waste it. You have to keep it, protect it, and build on it. So this is part of what he meant by صحبة الحال, the company of the hal. When there is a particular hal that is gifted to you, that is given to you by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a gift, don't waste it. Protect it. And then he said, وَتَرْوِيحِ الْأُنْس. صحبة الحال وترويح الأنس. Rejuvenation through uns, the comfort of intimacy. Your rejuvenation, it's a long path. It could sometimes be a hard one. There are hardships on this path. حُفَّتِ الْجَنَّةِ بِالْمَكَارِهِ. The Jannah was surrounded by hardships and undesirable things. Makarih, undesirable things. So you do need the rejuvenation. For the seekers and the masters of the path, the people in the second level, their best source of rejuvenation is uns. Uns is what? The comfort of intimacy in the divine presence. The comfort of proximity, nearness to the divine. That comfort, that uns, is their best recharger. And then he says, وَالسَّيْرُ بَيْنَ الْقَبْضِ وَالْبَسْطِ. Marching between the states of contraction and expansion. To continue the march between the states of contraction and expansion. We talked about contraction and expansion before, qabd and bast, ease and unease, to be easier. The easier translation would be ease, that's inbisat, affability, to feel at ease with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to feel at ease with the aqdar, to feel at ease with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to feel munbasit, mabsut, to feel, at ease. And then al-qabd, contracted, you feel constriction in your heart, when you feel this unease in your heart. And we said before that Ibn Ata rahimahullah, he said he contracted you, he expanded you so that he does not leave you contracted. And he contracted you so that he does not leave you expanded. And he took you out of both so that he does not leave you for anyone but him. So that you're not about the hal. You're not dependent on the hal in your march to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is not about being munqabid or munbasat. It is not about being at ease or unease. You're walking straight to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your state of inqibad, contraction, in your state of inbisat, expansion. It doesn't matter because you're not hal dependent anymore. The destination, the goal, the objective, the maqsood, Allah Azza wa Jal is the only thing that you are concerned about, the only thing that your eyes are fixated at. Your hal does not matter, whether you are in qibad, whether you are in bisat. لِكَيْ لَا تَأْسَوْا عَلَى مَا فَتَاكُمْ وَلَا تَفْرَحُوا بِمَا آتَاكُمْ. So that you do not despair over that which you have missed, and you do not exult over that which you have gained. Right? That's what Allah said. لِكَيْ لَا تَأْسَوْا عَلى مَا فَتَاكُمْ وَلَا تَفْرَحُوا بِمَا آتَاكُمْ. So that you do not despair over that which you have missed, and you do not exult over that which you have gained. The true seeker, for him, it doesn't matter which test he's being tried with. It really doesn't matter which test they're being tried with. They're walking between qabd and bast, contraction and expansion. Doesn't affect their walk. It doesn't affect their pace. It doesn't affect their speed and stamina on the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some people, they do well in certain conditions. They are condition dependent, or there are a lot of contingencies for them. So they get like one test, they can do certain things. They're good at certain things, and they're being tested by those things. And then when a different test gets administered to them, when Allah tries them by something else, they fail. They fail. And sometimes they say, but why? I was doing everything, So they get tried. Something happens to them. Could be good or bad. But particularly if it is bad, they have a faith crisis immediately. Why? Because it was not really, there was no sidq al-qasd here. There was no genuineness of direction here. It was just that this life was okay for them. They liked being somewhat spiritual. They liked having a community. They liked, being righteous. They liked just this role in life was okay for them. It was okay to go to the masjid, for a couple of times a day, or it was okay to, associate with those people. Life was still good, and I was fine. But once you get tested by a different test, then that is when, sidq al-qasd, the genuineness of direction, is truly being tested. It is not just about being comfortable here. This is my comfort zone. I go to the masjid, I have like a stable job. I go to the masjid, I pray, I come back home, take care of my kids, and so I'm a good person. And I pray my 5 prayers, and I fast in Ramadan, and I do a little bit of extra here or there, and give a lot of charity. And I make Umrah every year. Why should I be tested by a different test? Because that may not be all for Allah, or it may be all not necessarily for Allah, not incomplete devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It may just be your comfort zone. So anyway, the true seekers are not dependent on hal or anything. They are not dependent on any condition in their march or journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, الدرجة الثالثة ظهور مع صحبة الاستقامة وملازمة الرعاية على تهذيب الأدب. الدرجة الثالثة, third level, ظهور مع صحبة الاستقامة is delirium with adherence to uprightness and attentiveness to the refinement of character. صحبة الاستقامة, adherence to uprightness, وملازمة الرعاية على تهذيب الأدب, and attentiveness to the refinement of character. Zuhul is delirium. He's telling you that you will be delirious. But is delirium a good thing? It doesn't, he's saying to you that in this life you look like you're delirious. Like, for instance, if they are passing out stuff, somewhere, like they tell you that someone is passing out gold coins downstairs in the lobby. Anyone will say, if you're in your right mind, you'll just go down to the lobby and get the gold coins. If someone did not go down to the lobby to get the gold coins, that person will look like they are delirious. They're just zuhud. They're just not really, they're almost unconscious. How come, how could you not? If it is just downstairs in the lobby, they're passing out gold coins. The Sheikh is saying if your focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and your fixation on the path will make you look delirious. But keep in mind that this delirious is not distracting you from Allah. It is not distracting you from the rights of Allah. It's not distracting you from adherence to uprightness. Because why is he saying this? مع صحبة الاستقامة. Why is he making this a condition? Because particularly in our people who lived in Muslim countries for some time, older people maybe less and less, but older people that lived in Muslim countries for some time, you will find the majazib. They are called the majazib, the people that are majzub meaning pulled, or it means the people who are delirious. But the majazib then would, this is where deviation comes in. They claim to be not here. They claim that their self-annihilation, dissolution, absorption into the divine made them unaware of anything around them, and made whatever rules that apply to all of us, they don't apply to them anymore. And they don't have to abide by the Sharia because they are distracted from the world of the exterior, including the Sharia, by their hal, by their condition, by their fixation on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is what the Shaykh cautions against. That this delirium will never cause you to veer away from uprightness, istiqamah. How is the istiqamah? Is to istaqim ala sirat al-mustaqim, to be on the straight path that has been delineated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. Anyone who makes a claim that they are sort of not here, that this would make them, you just ask them, are you better than Abu Bakr and Umar? Are you better than Ata and, Wais ibn Amr al-Qurani and Sa'id ibn Jubayr? Not just the Sahaba. Are you better than Tabi'een? Where do you hear that any one of them abandoned the Sharia, abandoned the uprightness because of this delirium? So that your delirium, your intoxication, your spiritual intoxication is a disease that you must treat yourself from. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah was lenient enough and sort of merciful enough to those people to say that this delirium that will cause them, this intoxication that will cause them to err, to fall behind, to fall, or to speak of certain statements that are repulsive, repugnant, this delirium, if it is involuntary, like their hal, they got into a state of spiritual intoxication, that their hal made them truly like this, they are forgiven, even though it is a disease that they need to treat themselves from, even though it is inferior. It is not the state of the Sahaba, it's not the state of the Tabi'een. But if you truly get in a hal that causes you sukr, the common term that is used in Sufi sciences, sukr, it truly causes you sukr. you speak of a statement that is repugnant, or you do something that is wrong, you are forgiven if this was involuntary. But if you cause it to yourself, he said, if you cause it to yourself, if you lead yourself to it, or if you fake it, then you are liable. If you fake it, you're liable. And if you cause it to yourself, if you cause this intoxication to yourself by something that is not permissible, then you are liable. Is that clear? So that we can understand that sometimes, yes, the masters of the past have made statements. Some of them have made statements. What do we do? Was that like a short statement, usually not any more than 6 or 7 words? Did they recant it when they woke up, or they came back to their conscience? Or their consciousness, I'm sorry, not their conscience, their consciousness. And what about the rest of their seerah? Were they Sharia abiding throughout their lives? If they were Sharia abiding throughout their lives, they made a short statement and they recanted it. They took it back, like whenever Abu Yazid, rahimahullah, used to be asked about some of the statements that he made, he would completely deny them or reject them, recant them. If these conditions apply, then they can be excused, because the intensity of the imports, the spiritual imports, overwhelmed their intellect. That's what Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said. The intensity of the spiritual imports overwhelmed their intellect. In this case, their delirium that causes them to make those errors, if it is if it is involuntary, they will be excused and they will not be liable. But the Shaykh here cautions that the proper, the proper zuhul, being distracted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from all the siwa meaning everything else, being distracted by your focus on Allah from the siwa, everything else. This proper zuhud will never lead you, should never lead you to abandoning uprightness, istiqamah, and should never lead you to abandoning this attentiveness to refinement of character. Ri'aya ala tahzib al-adab. Character with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it will never cause you to be daring, to be audacious in your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or to be improper in your relationship with Allah, or your relationship with the people. These are, so here we have different levels. We have the people that are never in zuhud, because those people are always here, they're just never distracted, gold coins, they would rush to the gold coins all the time. They are completely intensely aware of their surroundings, because they live immersed in this dunya. Those people, you don't need to worry about them. Those people sometimes can claim to be spiritual and, don't worry about this stuff, and, what matters is the heart, and those are the worst of, those are not in any classification here. It's just like outside of the classification. They're intensely in the dunya, but they only use these excuses, what matters is the heart, and so on and so forth, and just to justify their wickedness and their non-compliance. So forget about those people. But then, the greatest of all people are the people who are truly distracted from the siwa by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they are fully aware of their environment, their surroundings, like the Prophet ﷺ in Ghazwat Badr, fully aware of the surroundings, fully aware of everything. Like the Sahaba, Ridwanullah alayhim, they used to be fully aware. Like Umar, he was thinking of war strategies while he's in the prayer. And the scholars find them an excuse for this, because they say, تَزَاحَمَتْ عَلَيْهِ الْوَاجِبَاتِ. Many obligations crowded his mind. He has an obligation as the Amir, as Amir al-Mu'mineen, to basically think for the troops and so on. and he has an obligation as a believer to make his salah, تزاحمت عليه الواجبات, many obligations overlap for him. Fully aware of this and that, fully aware. That full awareness, while being still, keeping insight, your destination, is the greatest of conditions, the condition of the Prophet ﷺ and his companions, and the greatest of the tabi'een, and so on and so forth. And then you have this level in the middle where some people are intellectually inclined, and some people are spiritually inclined. The intellectually inclined, their intellect will always be in control of their spirituality. And some people who are more spiritually inclined, their spirituality may overwhelm their intellect sometimes. Both people are not the topmost. They are not the Prophet and his companions. They are not the greatest of this ummah. They have issues. They have some weakness here or there. Some of them have an intellectual weakness. Some of them have a spiritual weakness. But we should aspire to, aspiring does not mean that you reach it, but when you aspire, when you set a goal for yourself, make your goal as high as possible. So we should aspire to be like the Prophet ﷺ and his companions. They were the best role models, and in them we have the best example. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.